When a sergeant got a call from his deputies on a cold December night, little did he know that he would soon find himself in the interrogation room.
Today's date is Friday, December 24th, 2021, and the time is 7:03 p.m. The location of this interview is the Command Staff Conference Room at the New Smyrna Beach Police Department. Presently being interviewed is Sergeant Richard Kirkland. I am Lieutenant Mark Severance with the New Smyrna Beach Police Department. Are you aware this interview is being recorded?
I am.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the statement you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Richard Kirkland faced a challenging situation when two of his deputies reached out to him for assistance.
On December 14th, 2021, there was a CAD call asking for police to respond to 143 Canal Street in reference to a suspicious person. Are you familiar with that call?
I am.
Were you working as the Bravo shift supervisor that evening?
I was.
So you were filling in for another supervisor,
Yes,
correct?
I was on overtime. Correct. The suspicious person call came out, was dispatched to Galt about a male bothering customers and asking for money. I was contacted by Officer Beatty after the call for service, not during it, but yes.
Okay, so you had no knowledge of what was going on at the scene at the time when either Officer Galt was there or Officer Beatty was there?
Correct.
So, you said Officer Beatty calls you, you believe, at the end of his interaction?
Correct.
The individual under suspicion in their conversation is Jeff Gray, a U.S. Army veteran and retired truck driver whose worst fears were about to be realized.
The business.
She died for this?
Huh?
She died for this?
Why? They said you're asking the customers for money and stuff like that.
Well, God bless them on this one.
Okay, well, they don't want you up front of the business.
I don't want you up in front of the business.
Okay, well, that's not how this is
So
going
you
to
can
go.
go get in your car and leave.
No. They said you're asking for money and stuff like that.
That's what they said. It's hearsay.
Huh?
It's hearsay.
That's...
I say I'm not asking for money.
Okay, well, they said you're up front. So can you just go somewhere else?
No.
Why?
Because I'm not going somewhere. I'll put it in my heart to stand right here. I'm staying right here.
Okay, but they don't want you blocking the sidewalk and stuff.
I'm not blocking the sidewalk.
Okay, you have your ID on you?
I don't have any ID on me, man.
Okay.
And if I did, I wouldn't give it to you anyway.
Alright, well, you need to just move along. That's all they want you to do.
Nope, not happening.
Why?
Because I'm just saying God bless someone's does.
Okay, yeah, and you have the right to do that.
Yeah.
They just don't want you in front of their business.
Earlier, Officer Brett Galt received a distressing call from a business manager.
What did they tell you?
The call note started out saying that there was a male dressed in all black, black shirt, black jacket, and originally he was asking for money from people inside there, and that's all I read because I was right around the corner from the scene.
So what crime were you intending to investigate there?
Well, at that point they said that he was at or in the business asking for money, and the business owner just wanted him to be moved along, and they didn't want anything to happen to him. But at that point, he was in the business asking people for money, as far as I understand from that point.
Okay.
While recounting the incident, Officer Galt constantly struggled to get a hold of himself. The reason behind this behavior would surface much later upon further investigation.
Upon your arrival on scene, what did you observe?
A black male, or not black, a white male dressed in all black, standing on the sidewalk.
Can you describe the interaction you had with him?
Normal questions I had is, what are you doing there? Is there a purpose you're up here? Stuff like that. He was just keeping to himself at that point.
Okay. What did he tell you he was doing?
That he was just, whatever the sign was like, God bless the homeless vets. He was just trying to make people aware that.
Okay.
He just kept going on that topic.
You're not asking for money?
I am not asking.
I don't. Okay, your sign doesn't say it, so I don't know. I mean, have you asked anybody for money?
I mean, I'll tell you, my name is Jeff. What's your name?
Officer Galt.
Officer what?
Galt.
Galt?
Yeah.
G-A-U-L-T?
G-A-O-T. And you haven't asked for money or anything like that?
I'm not going to answer your question.
Okay. Can I just see the back of your sign? Alright. You're making this more complicated than it has to be.
No, I'm not. I'm standing here on the sidewalk saying God bless someone's veteran.
I know, but causing... Are you talking to any of these customers?
Yeah, I'm saying God bless someone's veterans.
Okay, well, if they don't want you talking, then you just can't keep saying the same thing over and over again, causing this problem with them.
All right, well, have a nice night, sir.
Okay, well, they just want you moved along, so can you go ahead and move along for me?
No, sir. I didn't know you guys had body cams.
Yes. Every agency has body cameras, so.
And that's recording it.
Jeff had some wisdom to share with Officer Galt, but the cop was already convinced of the other side of the story. Officer Galt had to gather a few facts at the location.
This location, did you know what was public property and what was business property? Roughly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why did you tell Mr. Gray that asking for money is technically against city ordinance?
At that point, I thought panhandling was a city ordinance violation.
Okay, so it was your belief that it was?
Yes, sir.
Where did you get that?
I thought that early on in the training that we had a call, and there was people asking for money, and I thought that we looked up a city ordinance violation that was panhandling, and it's not a city ordinance violation. It's a state statute actually. So,
For, what's the state statute refer to?
like if you're blocking, like stepping out in traffic, blocking people's right to move.
So it's a 316 violation for some type of impediment of traffic.
Right.
If
It's a
you're
traffic violation.
soliciting or entering traffic patterns, right? That wasn't the case here, was it?
No.
Okay. Did you speak with the reporting party inside the business?
I did.
So describe your conversation with him.
I tried to talk to him and be like, hey man, I don't ever be in trouble or I just don't want my customers to be.
I got you, that makes sense.
Yeah, she's scared to leave. She didn't want to leave. Is that what you're saying?
Good.
No.
I changed my mind about the ID. I will show you my ID.
Okay. Alright.
There's my ID.
Alright, yeah. Well, can you just move along for me? That's all they want you to do.
I'm not moving along.
It was like, oh, he was up talking to people at the table, asking them for money, and then when my waitress went out, he went on to say that he was harassing her, and he wouldn't go into detail of that, and the waitress didn't want to go into detail about that either.
Okay.
So at that point, I went back out, and
You re-engaged Mr. Gray.
I did, yeah. At that point, I believed he might have been asking people for money due to him not answering my questions. So that's why I went back out and re-engaged with him. I thought we had something maybe stirring up.
So at this point, you're still thinking panhandling is a city ordinance violation,
Yes.
and you're acting on that assumption?
Unsure of how to proceed, Officer Galt made a hasty decision, a decision he would soon come to regret.
Who did you call on the phone when you went inside the business?
I called officer.
And what did you tell him?
I told him what the business owner just told me, and that at this point, I just need someone else to kind of hear the stories and work through it and see what we have.
When Officer Beatty arrived, did you go meet him?
I did, yes. I
And-
gave him a rundown of what was going on, and what
Okay.
the business owner told me and what the mail was actually doing at that point.
Okay, can you describe Officer Beatty's initial contact with Mr. Gray?
This is my ID.
You won't play that game.
I'm not showing you anything else. At this point, I'm invoking my right to remain silent. I'm invoking my right to have my attorney present during questions. I'm not answering questions. I'm not giving you ID.
So you're gonna end up
All
going
right,
to
I
jail.
told him my name is Jeff, and that's all I'm giving you.
Hey, no, if you want to give us your information, then that's fine. But we still have to.
Am I being
identify-
detained at this point?
Yes,
For what?
for the identification of you, which is an investigation that they started.
Okay, I'm not giving any identification. I'd like to remain silent.
The second cop who entered the scene, Officer Bay, had his own interpretation of what had occurred.
When you arrived at the scene,
For someone who was so uncertain, Officer Bay showed a remarkable amount of confidence in deciding to take things into his own
At
hands.
this point, you're being detained. Okay. So, see this. Do you have anything in your pockets that don't poke, stab, or anything?
Since you're asking if I have anything in my pocket,
Point, to any layperson, it may look like handcuffing Jeff for failing to show his ID was standard protocol. But, as it turns out, Jeff knew the law better than the cops did.
He threatens him that he's going to go to jail if he doesn't give him his identification because he's there investigating a crime to which he claims the business started the complaint. The male, I think, could see that he was going to be put into handcuffs, so he alerts the officers that he is armed and that he lawfully armed, he has a concealed weapons permit, and he kind of puts his arms out in front of him.
Okay.
Officer Beatty, and he makes it an exaggerated movement. He says, "Here's my hands out here," and Officer Beatty goes to, take the gun out of his pocket. I think that the male, maybe he felt a little uncomfortable with the officers taking the gun out of his pocket with his hands just being there.
Right.
So he actually suggests, "You guys, maybe I should be put in handcuffs." So then you see Officer Galt. That's when he comes in and puts the guy in handcuffs while Beatty's retrieving the firearm, and then ultimately searches the male, locates, I believe, some magazines.
However, did Officer Beatty have a good reason to follow through with his actions?
I had the manager was standing right next to us, and he was saying that his waitresses were scared to come out and that they felt threatened and that he was on private property asking for money.
So up to this point, when you asked for ID, up to this point in your investigation, did you have any reasonable or articulable suspicion that Mr. Gray was committing, or was about to commit a crime or violation of city ordinance?
I did.
What crime were you thinking of?
That he was either trespassing or but that's just based off of what the manager. He was saying that his waitresses were being threatened or felt threatened.
Okay. Yeah, I don't recall hearing anything about that from the person.
The interrogating officer promptly relayed Officer Bay's bluff, stating that his narrative was completely skewed. He asked, "Can you tell me why you decided to detain Mr. Gray?" Officer Bay responded, "Well, there was in front of a restaurant that was open and full, and I didn't want to make the scene because he was not aggressive, just argumentative and defiant. So I wanted to take him across the street so that we could figure out what was going on without creating more of a..." The interrogator interjected, "As you moved to detain Mr. Gray, did he tell you that he was armed lawfully and had a concealed weapons permit?" Officer Bay hesitated and replied, "No, yes, and no. He said he was armed, but he didn't say anything about the concealed weapon until he got across the street." I have to correct you on that because if you watch the video, he does say, "I'm armed," pauses for a second, "lawfully, and I have a concealed weapon," okay? As you were taking the sign from them, that's a matter of record.
Can you tell me why you decided to detain Mr. Gray?
It was in front of a restaurant that was open and full, and I didn't want to make the scene because he was being not aggressive, just argumentative and defiant. So I wanted to take him across the street so that we can figure out what was going on without creating more of a scene.
As you moved to detain Mr. Gray, did he tell you that he was armed lawfully and had a concealed weapons permit?
No. Yes and no. He said he was armed. He said that he was armed, but he didn't say anything about the concealed weapons permit until we got across the street.
Well, I have to correct you on that, because if you watch the video, he does say, "I'm armed," pauses for a second, "lawfully, and I have a concealed weapons permit,"
Okay.
as you were taking the sign from him. So that's a matter of record. That's what it was saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not.
Okay.
That's just my recollection.
Okay.
Officer Bay desperately attempted to cover his mistake, but only succeeded in digging himself a deeper hole. The interrogator continued, "Why did you seize the firearm before he was secured in handcuffs, or at all if he was only being detained pending further investigation?" Officer Bay explained, "Well, at that point, because I thought he was committing a crime. Otherwise, I wouldn't put him in handcuffs. He's resisting without violence. I'm trying to conduct an investigation, and he doesn't want anything to do with it. He doesn't want to identify himself, so that's why I detained him. And if I'm detaining somebody, I'm not going to leave a weapon on him. But wouldn't it be more prudent to handcuff him first and then deal with the weep on his shoe if he was compelled to do so?"
Why did you seize the firearm before he was secured in handcuffs, or at all, if he was only being detained pending further investigation?
Well, at that point, because I thought he was committing a crime, otherwise I want to put him in handcuffs, that he's resisting without violence. I'm trying to conduct an investigation, and he doesn't want anything to do with it. He doesn't want to identify himself, so that's why I detained him. If I'm detaining somebody, I'm not going to leave a weapon on him.
Okay, but wouldn't it be more prudent to handcuff him first and then deal with the weapon issue if he
I
felt
wasn't
compelled to do
handcuffed.
that. Well, he was being handcuffed.
Right.
That had not been done yet, and you were already diving in his pockets. So, okay. After you walk him across the street, did he advise you that you were violating his civil rights and to proceed cautiously?
Yes.
What was your response to that? Do you recall?
I don't recall.
Okay.
Once again, the truth turned out to be slightly different.
Okay, so I want to make sure that you understand that you're forcing a hand that doesn't need to be forced. Okay? We're not here to take your gun. You'll have it back. Right now, it's mine because we had to detain you. Okay? That's what you pretty much asked us to do. Okay? When you don't want to identify yourself, then we'll call. So it's totally different if we're driving by, and that's you over there, right? You're not requesting anything on your sign. You're not breaking any laws, okay? When they complain to dispatch that you're asking for money and that there are customers who are telling the staff that is against the law. So we're doing an investigation to see if that actually occurred, okay? That's the only reason why you're being detained. But because it's an actual investigation of a complaint, you have to identify yourself. That's state statutes. Okay. Just make sure you're aware of what's going to go down because you won't.
In yet another blunder, Sergeant Kirkland found himself sitting in the interrogation room after 2 of his deputies reached out to him for help. The suspicious person in question was Jeff Gray, a U.S. Army veteran and retired truck driver. The situation unfolded when Officer Brett G. received a distressing call from a business manager. As Officer Galt recounted the incident, he struggled to maintain composure, and the reason behind his behavior would become clear later. Officer Bay, another cop on the scene, had his own interpretation of the events. Despite being uncertain, Officer Bay took matters into his own hands with surprising confidence. To an observer, it might seem standard protocol to handcuff Jeff for failing to show his ID. However, Jeff, who knew the law well, asserted his rights. The interrogating officer immediately called Officer Bay's bluff, stating that his narrative was entirely skewed. The officer questioned why Jeff was detained when he was on a public sidewalk holding a sign expressing support for homeless veterans, which was neither illegal nor suspicious. In another twist, the business manager, Axel, claimed that Jeff made his employee uncomfortable and insinuated that Jeff was panhandling. However, Jeff's harmless sign in support of homeless veterans contradicted Axel's narrative. As the officers unsecured Jeff, he willingly provided his concealed weapons permit, directing Officer Bay to his wallet. The officers released Jeff after verifying that he was not wanted, yet they failed to run the concealed weapons permit number for validation. The entire confrontation, it seemed, was a scheme orchestrated by Axel, an entitled manager who wanted Jeff away from his property. The officers failed to recognize Jeff's lawful right to carry a firearm and detained him without proper cause. Despite Jeff's compliance, the system failed him, as evidenced by the officers overlooking crucial details. While the officers found Jeff's gun and permit, they missed critical information captured on multiple cameras at the scene. Jeff, conducting his own sting operation, recorded the incident and posted it on social media. The review of the footage revealed that Jeff was well within his rights, and the officers' actions were unwarranted. The system's failure highlighted the need for improved training and awareness among law enforcement officers. Jeff's case served as a reminder of the importance of upholding citizens' rights and the consequences of overstepping boundaries. The incident prompted a reassessment of use of force policies and raised questions about the accountability of law enforcement in ensuring public safety without infringing on individuals' rights. In conclusion, the case of Jeff Gray underscored the importance of transparency, accountability, and adherence to the law in law enforcement practices. It sheds light on the need for continuous training to ensure officers are well informed about citizens' rights and exercise discretion appropriately. The incident catalyzed for re-evaluating procedures to prevent similar mistakes in the future and to restore public trust in law enforcement.